today we are studying Genesis 29, verses 25 through 35. I guess we could entitle the message today that something like Jacob wakes up to a surprise, or things are not working out exactly like he expected. There's a lot of things we could say, but to bring you up to date, and it's all this goes together. This is all important. Jacob, his name means deceiver or supplanter, trickster. His mindset is, how can I trick somebody out of something? And he did that with his brother, tricked him out of the birthright, and over just some pottage. Of course, his brother wasn't the most intelligent man on the face of the earth. Went out and married 2 Canaanite women just to spite his parents. But then Jacob, his father, it appears, is dying. He's blind. He's in bad health. And so Isaac is going to give Esau the blessing. Remember the story. Rebekah finds out about it. And Rebekah helps Jacob deceive his father. And I've said this often, I could never have deceived my father like he did. That's not within my DNA. Plus, my dad would have killed me. But he deceived his father, and then all of a sudden now his brother wants to kill him, so he leaves. And all of this is in the providence of God, his hand moving. I look at chapter, 24. It just was a mess. I mean, it was like, who wasn't a sinner during that thing? It was, from Isaac, all of them. And then we see how now that Jacob has been sent out to go back to the family of Shem up in Syria and to take a bride. Well, now, when Rebekah was taken for Isaac, and this is one of the problems with Isaac, Isaac was a great man. He only had one wife. He never moved. God never changed his name. He was just a great guy. But he should have lined up his children to take wives when they were in their 40s or 30s, sometime in that lifetime. But he didn't do it. He thinks he's dying. Jacob has stole the birthright from his brother, and the blessing. He stole the birthright, then he stole the blessing from his brother. And Jacob is now taken off on a trip to Haran. And the first 3 days, have to be depressing. Brother don't like him, his family, he's tricked his father. His father went ahead and gave him the blessing even after. And they've sent him away, but they didn't send him away with 10 camels like they did to get Rebekah. They sent him away with his hat in his hand. He didn't really have anything to show for himself. He's depressed. He goes to Bethel and finds a rock and lays down and goes to sleep, and his life is changed. His life is changed. And he is, we would call it today, gloriously saved. And he makes a vow to God, and as God has spoken to him and promised him and his seed the blessing, and he's made a vow to God, and he set up a pillar, much like we would be, once we're saved, we would get baptized, and that showing that we're not ashamed of the gospel of Christ. We're not ashamed of Jesus and the salvation. And so for the next 20 or 30 days, he is like skipping all the way to Haran. He's excited. He's saved. God is on his side. The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac is now the God of Jacob. And he goes there, and the first thing that he sees is a well, and around the well are people, and he's talking to them about it, and Rachel shows up, and he immediately falls in love with Rachel. Now, if you're 77 and that's the first woman you actually meet, I would think she looked pretty good too, I think. But she evidently was a very attractive woman. Jacob spent a month there, and during that month, well, he met Laban, Rachel's father. And we know from when Laban first was introduced to us with Rebekah, he was a trickster back then. This was like 98 years ago when the servant of Abraham went to pick up Rebekah, and Laban said, well, why don't you stick around for 10 days and we'll have a celebration. And today, and throughout our lesson today, we'll see that he had a plan. Well, the servant of God was a faithful servant of God and said, no, we're going home tomorrow. And they went home the next day. Jacob, a little naive. He's there a month, and while he's there, Laban has planned a plan. He is going to trick. Yeah, the trickster, this is where the trickster gets tricked. The deceiver gets deceived. The supplanter gets supplanted. And this is going to be something that is interesting as we look at this. And I have some views on this that I'll try to express today. It's really been on my mind for a couple weeks now. But as we come into this, we find in verse number 25 that it came to pass that in the morning, I don't understand why it wasn't in the evening. But in the morning, behold, it was Leah. Now, Jacob's upset. The situation is, the reason it wasn't the night before, he may have partied too much during the day. And he was fully expecting it to be Rachel. It wasn't Rachel. It was Leah. Totally unexpected. What is this thou hast done unto me? Now, this is kind of like what Esau said, right? We're finding Jacob, even though Jacob, his life was changed at Bethel, you still have to pay. There's some penalties you have to pay. God forgives us of our sin. But we still have to pay. There will be consequences. David, who could have sinned a greater sin than David? And throughout his life, even though he was forgiven of God, he had like one daughter raped, another son kills the son that raped the daughter, and then that son tried to take away the kingdom. And throughout, even on his deathbed, another son tried to steal the kingdom away before Solomon took it over. David's whole life was paying for that sin that he had. It was forgiven. God forgave him. But he was paying for it. And Jacob will be paying for this for over 20 years. And so this is just the beginning of what Jacob is going to be paying for. And it says, wherefore then hast thou beguiled me? And Laban said, it must not be done so in our country. to give the younger before the firstborn. Now wait just a minute. How many years has Jacob been there? He was there for a month and then 7 years. He didn't know that? Rachel didn't know that? If Rachel knew it, all she had to do was say, we have to wait till my sister gets married. And if that's the case, I can imagine that Rachel and Jacob would have set about getting that woman married. You see what I'm saying? I'm thinking that they would have said, hey, Leah, let's pretty you up. Let's put some lipstick and put some rouge and let's do a little pinching of the cheeks and fixing your hair and let's put you out there so somebody will pick you up. Because we want to get married and we can't get married until you get married. The deceiver is deceived. Now, I like to put if you take characters, just in other words, if this was a movie or a film, not a film, but a theater, and you put your feet into each one, into Laban's mind, this guy's mind is thinking about all the way through. All the way through, he's thinking about how to get something for nothing. He's thinking how to use, for 20 years he uses Jacob. For 20 years he uses Jacob. And really when it's all, actually Jacob says to him, you have changed my wages 10 times. Laban, but then you put Rachel. Now Rachel, I have to feel for Rachel because I don't think, personally, now again, I get with the commentaries and they don't agree with me. It's okay. It's okay. I understand that. Some people back in the 1500s thought differently than I do in the 21st century. But they think that Leah was in on it. Hey, Dad, hook me up with him. Let's fix this up. Leah was not in on it. Leah was not in. Rachel was not in on it. Rachel now has a husband that's not the same man he was the night before. He has consummated the marriage with Leah. Her mind now is changing. And we're going to see a little bit of a word here in a little while that's called hate. Terrible word. Terrible word. Laban says, fulfill her week, and we will give thee this also for the service which thou hast served with me, yet 7 other years. So what he's saying is, I'll give you Rachel, but now you got to serve another 7 years. Now you kind of look at this and say, well, why didn't Jacob buckle up and say, let's fight, let's be, well, understand, he is a Jew, a Hebrew. He is in Syria with the Syrians. Now, these are the family of Shem, where he's supposed to be, but Laban has friends and brothers, or sons and family, and he's all alone. So he's gladly going to serve another 7 years for Rachel. The thing is, he gets Rachel at the end of a week. This is what he's saying: serve me and fulfill the week. And Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel, his daughter, to wife. Jacob came to Haran to take a wife. He found the most beautiful woman on the face of the earth. In his mind, now he has 2 wives. and 2 concubines, which are, we'll call them maid servants for now. How many tents has this guy pitched here in a week? His life is changing. I mean, you talk about a dramatic change. This is crazy here. And Jacob did so and fulfilled her week, and he gave him Rachel, his daughter, to wife. And Laban gave Rachel, his daughter, Bilhah, his handmaid, to be her maid. Now, when it says Rachel, his daughter, Bilhah, Laban's daughter, Bilhah, how can that be? Well, what Laban has done is he has concubines that are having children, and these concubines are the daughters that he has, that he's giving Zilpah and Bilhah to Rachel and Leah. They will help them. They will be their servants. Bilhah means bashful or modest. Zilpah means a trickling. It's kind of like it's used like with mirth and a fragrance that, like a trickling, like a perfume or something. And these are the 2 women. So now the stage is set. Now Jacob, wanting one beautiful wife, has an unattractive wife and a beautiful wife and a couple handmaidens. And we see as we get into this, and he went in also to Rachel, and he loved also Rachel more than Leah. Is it possible to love 2 people exactly the same? I don't think so. You know, you want to say, I tell each of my children I love them. And I do. I do love them. I give my life for them. But there's differences in each one. Some are more lovable than others. I hope they don't hear this. Some are more lovable than others. But I think that as we see this, there's one thing we're seeing is what man is doing. He went in, and so now he's consummated the marriage with Leah, and actually for the week. And now he's consummated the marriage with Rachel, the one he actually loves. Can you see a conflict beginning to arise here? And I don't blame Leah. And like I said, many people think, some of the commentators believe that Leah kind of instigated all of this. I don't believe that. This is Laban all the way. I don't think Leah knew a thing about it, and probably until that night. She didn't go in and say to Jacob, I'm not Rachel. She accepted it. But we have a mess, and yet the hand of God has put together a family that will give us the family of Israel, Jacob, and that will give us blessings beyond our understanding. And when the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Now, the indication here was Leah was hated by Rachel. I understand it. I mean, you have to understand that, right, ladies? I mean, that would be something that wouldn't be acceptable. 4,000 years ago, it was really, God didn't like that. That's one of the blessings of Isaac. He only had one wife. And he had very little problem. But now Jacob has a couple. But now we're turning our attention to Leah. I want you to see Leah for just a little bit here. Leah was hated, and he opened her womb. What's that going to do? How is that going to change the picture? Well, first of all, we see that the Lord saw. I wrote about that. I don't know how many of you get most of y'all get the letter, the newsletter. If you read it, I wrote about this. And it's such a blessing to see that no matter what state you're in, God sees it. You have sorrow, you've lost a loved one, God sees it. You're hated, you're rejected, God sees it. The times of divorce today and feeling alone and the times that we feel like there's nobody loves us, the Lord sees it. The Lord sees it. And the Lord can take care of things. Leah, of all people, is in a situation where she didn't want to be. There's no indication Leah desired this. And now her sister, her sister, because she was the ugly duckling of the family, her sister probably kind of took care of her. And you know, I don't know. But now there's a hatred between the sister and that, like I said, that word hate is terrible. It is a terrible word. It just is it's an amazing thing. I mean, you know, Jesus has said that there's going to be a time. He said, if there's a time that people hate you and they cast you aside for my sake, understand, I'm there. I'm with you. I'm with you. Leah was hated. So what did God do? God opened her womb. In other words, now she could have a child. Rachel will not have a child for years. In the process of time, we're going to see Leah, and watch how Leah, as we go through this, each one of her children has a spiritual significance or has a significance as to how she was feeling at this period of time. Leah conceived and bare a son. She called his name Reuben. For she said, surely the Lord hath looked upon my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me. What was Leah's desire? To be loved. To be loved. It's hard to discuss this. We're adults, so it's not so bad maybe. How can you go in? I'll try to use it. How can you go in and consummate the marriage and have that relation for a week or weeks and not love that person? How does that happen? How does that happen? Well, the hatred was more on Rachel's side, but the love that Jacob had was not for Leah. The love he had was for Rachel. But Rachel had someone that did love her. His name was who is that? Who is it? That's Jehovah. That is the Creator God. That is the God that created all things. He is God. He is the Almighty God. The Lord loved her. And she conceived and bare a son. She called his name Reuben. And the word Reuben, if you break it down, you can see in my notes, well, Reu, it means behold ye, and Ben, the last part, means a son. Remember Rachel's second son? How many of you remember? You know Rachel. We're talking about her. She did bear 2 children, and that was Joseph and who? Benjamin. But what did Rachel call his name? Benoni. And what that means, that Oni at the end means affliction, sorrow. Child of my sorrow, child of my affliction. And here we have that the word affliction being used here by Leah, and she's talking about Reuben. She's saying, the name of Reuben says, behold, a son. Now remember the name, the word behold, y'all understand what that is a word that grabs attention. That is a word that makes you to stop and think, what is being said? Behold. And what he's saying here, behold, a son. What Rachel is saying, she's given birth to a son, the first son of Jacob. She is saying to Jacob, behold, a son. God has given me a son in my affliction. What's the affliction? She's hated. And yet God blessed her with the first son of the family. And then we find she had another son. And she conceived again and bare a son and said, now this is the name of the son, because the Lord hath heard that I was hated, he hath therefore given me a son also. And she called his name Simon. Simon means heard or hearing with acceptance, Gesenius says. She is having now, if we look at this, because the Lord hath heard that I was hated, he hath given me a son. And then she conceived again and bare a son, and his name was Levi. And she conceived again and bare a son, and his name was Judah. I have 5 minutes to do this. So what we have is Leah. She has Reuben and Simeon, but the first major son here is Levi. Levi, if you go through history, you will find Levi as Moses, Aaron, Eleazar, and then we'll have Phinehas, and then we have on down to, actually Phinehas is a unique character, and I don't have time to talk too much about it, but he's the one that run a spear through the, anyways, he stopped a, God had, the men of Israel were going about whoring after the women of the Mennonites or the Midianites and that. And there was like 47,000 people were killed. And one of the big leader's sons came in with one of the women, and Phinehas went in there and he went and run a spear through him. And God gave him an everlasting covenant that his family would have an everlasting covenant. From him came Zadok, that was with David and was David's last high priest. And when you go into Ezekiel in chapter 40 through 47, when you get into Ezekiel, you'll find that this family, Zadok, will be the family that waits on Jesus Christ himself. But not just that, you go down and we have John the Baptist, right? John the Baptist is from these families. Then you have Judah. And again, I don't have time. So, but you go from Judah. Oh, well, I mean, I could take you right on through Nahshon, Salmon. Salmon married Rahab. Their son Boaz married Ruth. Their son Jesse had a whole bunch of children, and one of those was named David. And David, through Solomon and through Nathan, you have Mary and you have Joseph. So when that person that needed healing cried out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Jesus literally was the Son of David. And John the Baptist, being the firstborn, heralded the coming, behold, the Lamb of God that taketh away the sins of the world. Do you think God blessed Leah? Eternally blessed Leah. You know what? When you go to the Hebron today, you're going to find a graveyard. Actually, a tomb. In that tomb is Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, Jacob and not Rachel, but Leah. Rachel was buried just outside of Bethlehem, but Leah is with Jacob. She has been honored and blessed for her faithful service. Do you think the providence of God, the sovereignty of God Almighty didn't put all this picture together? This is what's amazing about genealogy and history, is to watch the hand of God move and how he moves in some areas where, for example, Judah, what does he do? Judah goes out and marries a Canaanite woman and has 3 children. What? And God didn't want that. God wanted him to have a son that can carry forth down to David all the way to Jesus. How did he arrange that? Well, he got Tamar to marry up the sons. First son, God had to kill him because he was no good. Second son, God had to kill him because he's no good. And Tamar runs around and plays the harlot, and she has a son, 2 sons, and they're both in Matthew chapter 1 and verse number 3. Pharez and Zahar of Tamar. It's a miracle how God moves through history. Charlie said we're done. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Thank you, Lord. We're so grateful for your love for us. Just pray you'll bless the morning service. Use us that we might honor you now, Lord, in Jesus' precious